As we wind down 2025, there's one important question we as creators need to be asking ourselves. Should we stay on the platform we're on, or should we jump ship before it ultimately sinks? Because we have a lot of big changes that came out this week. YouTube is doing massive layoffs amid their AI slop problems. We have Meta, that's Instagram, Facebook, and Threads lumped together, are actually growing users. Who would have seen that coming? Their Threads is bigger than LinkedIn now. Go figure. LinkedIn is still growing, though. We have X growing in the EU somehow, and TikTok is still in limbo. So let's go through all of these stories and break down. The big theme today is, should you jump ship on YouTube? Because things are really not looking good. Hey, I'm Jason, faith-based entrepreneur. Timestamps and some sources below, along with a link to today's sponsor, ActOS and Go High Level, the best marketing platform and arguably the best tools to help you start, grow, and scale your digital creator business. More on that in a bit. Link at the top of the description. Now, the first story we have here is YouTube announcing a voluntary exit program. And what's nuts about this is this applies to everyone at YouTube. So essentially, they're doing a big restructuring. They're creating 3 different teams, and they're talking about how wonderful this is and, creative spin. YouTube is growing. They grew like 15% of their ad revenue over the last year or quarter. But the real concern here is the voluntary exit, because as we've seen with some traditional media companies, there have been mass layoffs across the board, whether it's Amazon or Netflix, or now Paramount just got purchased by Skydance, and they're about to lay off a bunch of people. And so we're seeing this huge shift across all media, video media, whether it's streaming services, traditional studios consolidating into one, or now YouTube essentially saying, hey, you can leave, or we're just going to fire everybody. I see this as there's a major shift behind the scenes. Now, I don't think YouTube is about to die, but what I do think is happening is AI is definitely coming to YouTube, and YouTube likes it, despite what they say. If you remember, YouTube actually quietly changed their terms of service. So every video that's uploaded to YouTube now actually allows YouTube to train its AI models. So you better believe YouTube really wants to just replace all of us with their own AI, and now they don't have to share that commission, AdSense commission with creators. And because I don't want to be totally doom and gloom with this story, according to the Hollywood Reporter, actually I got it wrong, it's TechCrunch, I had to switch screens here, there's going to be a new creator and community products organization. So supposedly there's going to be better support for creators. I'm kind of rolling my eyes to see if that actually matters. But I think the bigger picture here is YouTube really is trying to step in to compete against the big media players and almost abandoning what made YouTube in the first place, which is small creators like yourself and myself. And they're looking to more partnerships with music, sports, and media companies, like they've made a big investment with NFL tickets. So essentially, YouTube's forgetting that they're a social media platform and just allowing AI slop to infect everything on that side, and focusing more on the quote-unquote traditional media, even though those companies are also doing massive job cuts as well. And so I don't think this is all AI. This is also just indicative of there's too much freaking content. There's just too much. There's too many people who want to be YouTubers. There's too many people who've seen the YouTube dream and think that they can just make videos like this and magically make a bunch of money. As you can see the view count here, I'm restarting from scratch. It's not fun. The YouTube gravy train that used to be around just a few years ago is completely gone. My original channel used to make 5 to 6K a month, and now it's like at maybe 300. So it is a huge, huge difference. And I've seen other YouTubers like Linus Tech Tips or Jeremy from The Quartering talking about their revenue going down. And really, the era of just being able to create content specifically for YouTube and actually make a decent living off of YouTube AdSense, which I'll admit I made that mistake, is pretty much coming to an end, which is why it's so important that you use something like today's sponsor, Go High Level, to actually have your own platform and own way to monetize your audience and your business by providing more value to them. So Go High Level is an all-in-one marketing platform that allows you to create websites, sales pages, grow your email lists, and actually create courses and communities so you can directly add more value to your audience and your community and grow them on a platform you control. Because yeah, YouTube memberships are definitely not something that you should rely on. Plus, when you give Go High Level try free for 30 days, talking over myself. You also get access to my private community where you can ask me questions directly about growing your own creator business. We have a bunch of templates, tools, and trainings and live calls in there. Everything you need with the best software and I'll say the best support to help you be successful in your creator business. And speaking of being a creator, also, I'll leave a link in the description to a supercut of Canva's Droptober. You can see all of the major releases in less than 15 minutes. We'll do an extra where I actually dive in because there's only like 3 that I think we're actually going to use. But I do think it's pretty awesome that Canva is pretty close to replacing Adobe. So that is pretty cool because Adobe's kind of a mean company. But speaking of somewhat mean companies here, let's go ahead and talk about Meta and their growth. Because I was genuinely shocked to see that Meta, that is the combination of Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and now Threads, is actually growing users. Yes, there are actually people who didn't have one of those accounts. Now, of course, primarily this is what they call in emerging markets, so probably not so much in North America or UK, New Zealand, Australia, the Canada places most people watch this for. Unlike YouTube, who is chasing after traditional media, Meta still largely relies on actual normal people, or creators, if you will, creating content. So it is pretty cool to see that. I just wanted to show these numbers that YouTube may be full of AI slop. There are definitely problems with the AdSense program. And so if you're not going to get paid for making these super costly long form videos, they cost way more than just, a simple 45-second post to Facebook. Facebook might actually be the place to go. And Threads, yes, Threads, I have to admit I was wrong, is at 150 million active users. So for context, X is about 250, LinkedIn is at about 134, and TikTok is at 934 million, right? So definitely nowhere near TikTok territory. But when you look at Threads versus LinkedIn versus X, I would say they're probably pretty close to the same. Now, I know I'm going to get some eye rolls like X is at 250 million, so we're talking about 150 million more people on X. But I think for most niches, especially if you're not in news, that's not going to be as huge of a difference. And even though, as you'll see later, X is actually growing in the EU somehow, it still kind of has a bad political stigma just because of stuff Elon Musk likes to say. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of Grok and the weird AI chick that they're doing. That's just the Christian in me just feels revolted by that. So I'm actually canceling my Grok membership. But this chart does show that Threads is catching up with X. And if you use the marketing platform that we recommend, Go High Level, linked up in the description, it actually includes a social media scheduler, and they just added Threads. So you can actually post your social content from Go High Level to all of the major platforms except X, because X is super expensive. But looking at these numbers, it's probably not too long before X and Threads are around the same number of users, and that's just going to make Meta that much stronger as a platform for us creators, because YouTube AI slop and they're laying off a bunch of people really doesn't look good. I don't think I would tell anyone to start a YouTube channel in 2026 as their first social media platform anymore. Places like Threads and LinkedIn seem to give us a lot more opportunity. And speaking of LinkedIn, we'll jump down here just to quickly show you, they've essentially seen a lot more growth. So they're only at 134 million active users versus Threads 150. But if you're in any sort of business to business or entrepreneurship style stuff, LinkedIn is still an opportunity because, especially with the younger generation, most people don't think to post there. And you can just take your short form content and put it on LinkedIn. So if you're doing something for Threads or Instagram, you could probably just repurpose that for LinkedIn. Even if it's not the best fit, something's better than nothing, and LinkedIn is still starving for videos. Unlike the next one we'll talk about, TikTok, obviously TikTok doesn't need our videos. They have plenty of users, but the deal is still in limbo. So there was a huge signing a couple weeks ago, Trump saying, hey, yeah, I approve this deal, let's go. And then China's like, oh, I don't know, maybe not. So I still would not recommend starting a TikTok account because we still don't know where things are going to go. They launched their Lemon 8 app that's pretty much gone nowhere. That was going to be their backup in case TikTok was banned. But right now it seems like Oracle is the one that's going to be able to purchase TikTok. But again, the CCP, that's the Chinese Communist Party over there, still have not, if we come all the way down here, their state media has essentially said, yeah, we're still figuring it out. So We're going on over almost a year now of this TikTok ban supposedly going into effect, but it's just kind of like they keep kicking the can down the road, because honestly, I don't see why the CCP would ever let the algorithm be exposed to anyone outside, because that is TikTok's bread and butter. Unless you just give away the user data and say, hey, Oracle, figure out a new algorithm for TikTok US version, I really don't see how that's going to work, because that algorithm is really what makes TikTok TikTok. And that's why all the other social media platforms have worked so hard to try and copy them. So even though I don't recommend starting TikTok, they did just release a feature that if you already make long form video, you'll now be able to upload it directly to TikTok, and this new feature will just cut it up for you, which I think is pretty cool. So if you're not already making short form content, or you don't want to pay like $100 or $200 a month for a bunch of AI tools to cut it up for you, and then you're still going to pay a virtual assistant to figure it out. No AI company is good enough to take your long form and automatically make short form content. It still stinks. I've tried. It doesn't work well. But if you can use TikTok's AI, I think that will go a long way in helping you create your short forms for TikTok. And then while you wouldn't download them and upload them to other platforms, at least you can look at the short form content that the TikTok algorithm makes for you, and you can essentially emulate it in your own editing software. So you can be like, oh, it cut from 105 to 107 or something like that. That's a good clip. And then you go and essentially copy. Yes, it's a very manual process. Creating good short form content is a manual process. And I will say that unless you're already making long form content, this probably isn't a big deal, because what I found with when I actually had a team doing this for me is a lot of the times the best short form content, you don't just cut like 1 minute and then you don't just make a cut and then 1 minute later make another cut and that's your clip. Most of the time, the best clips were like 30 seconds here, 10 seconds there, 9 seconds here, and then 40 seconds, someplace else. And you kind of supercut those together, and that would make a really good clip. But unless you're doing interviews or you're doing something that really lends itself well to making just straight cuts in your timeline, you're most likely going to find tools like this somewhat helpful, but not completely replace the need for manual editing for creating your shorts. And for some types of content, you'll just have to experiment. It might actually be faster for you to just record an extra 60 seconds specifically for the short and work with that, as opposed to trying to cut things up. Because YouTube's not paying enough. I could say from personal experience, YouTube no longer pays enough for me to pay an editor to cut it all up into short form content anymore. The AdSense revenue just is not there. And I talked a lot longer than I thought, so we'll just quickly go through this last story here. Apparently, usage of X is up in the European Union, so it's growing over there. It kind of makes sense because there's not a whole lot of places people can go to voice their actual opinions, and the poor people over in UK can still get arrested for making the wrong tweet. So it's quite sad. And finally, to wrap up, Grokpedia got launched. This really just feels like another version of AI lookup, except it's just copying Wikipedia somehow. I see this as another gimmick. I don't understand how, outside of Elon Musk and X fans, this is actually going to be practical or any better than just using an AI to look information up. But hey, there you go. Grokpedia is now a thing. So thank you so much for watching. Sincerely hope you enjoyed this more integrated style where I kind of tried to connect the stories together. Do comment below with what was helpful or what wasn't, because still working on the format of this, trying to figure out how to make this the most helpful for you so you can bounce in for 15, 20 minutes, get all the info you need, and get back to content creation. But when it comes to 2026 and beyond, for the first time, I don't think YouTube is the best place to start. They are doing massive layoffs, which means they see something that we can't. Something's going on behind the scenes. And when it comes to platform growth, I think Meta and X and LinkedIn are still showing strong growth, and it's so much faster and simpler and easier to make text-based content and have AI help you, make some infographics or something for a LinkedIn or X or Threads post versus a video like this one that's going to take like 6 hours to make, and this is a new channel and I'll get like 40 views for it. So I'll leave that there. Hit that like button, subscribe for more just like this. Still working on more awesome in-depth guides for you. And make sure you check out that link in the description to a 30-day free trial of Go High Level, along with free access to ActOS, our all-in-one toolkit for helping you be more successful in your creator business. Way too much talking at the end. Until the next, keep building the business you love.